What's up, Alex?
What's going on, my brother? How you doing today?
I'm good, bro. How are you?
If I was any better, I'll be asking Corbin.
No, I don't know about any of that. Working on it, but I don't know about that.
Hey, man, this is one of those days. You had a hell of a week last week, and it looks like this week you're trying to bounce back from it. So,
Yeah, man. Sometimes in business you run into a lull,
yeah,
and you got to figure out either A, you get beat up for another week, or you start putting some feet to the ground,
yep,
making some progress, and we're trying to make some progress, but it's just taking them on the chin, as they say.
yeah. Take it on the chin and just build piece by piece afterwards.
That's it. So tell me about you, man. What you got going on?
Oh man, work wise, it's budget season for us, so it's just been a lot of meetings, a lot of meeting with project managers, supervisors, senior leadership, talking about what we're going to spend for the remainder of this year and what we plan to spend next year. And then on the personal side, just a lovely process of wedding planning. So
Mm-hmm.
we thought we had a venue locked down, but we both ultimately decided like, okay, let's look at some other venues. And so now we have another potential venue to tour. Hopefully this is it because I am almost getting to my wits end and we haven't even locked down anything. So
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, those are two biggest things right now, man. It's just work is working and life is life.
Amen.
So but on today's episode of the Three Pillars of Man, today we are going to talk about, and the title of this episode is Truth Over Try, Learning Without Losing Yourself. And as I always do, I like to open up our episode with a quote. And the quote states, if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed. Marcus Aurelius. And the insight behind this quote is, in a culture full of tribes, fan bases, and personalities, we often cling more to the messenger than the message. But what if there's a better way? What if we could extract truth, growth, and wisdom without losing ourselves in devotion to flawed people? Which leads me to our first discussion question of the episode. Why do we tend to elevate public figures to near perfection, whether they're spiritual leaders, lifestyle gurus, or political icons? And what does that say about our own desire for certainty, meaning, or external validation? My brother, I always like to start with you. What do you what do you think is the reason why we hold different influencers, spiritual leaders, political leaders, why do we hold them to such a high regard in our lives?
So I think that kind of comes into a multitude of different things, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
um there's the one aspect of it where it's they're doing something that we want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's like for some people, or a good example of this would be Jocko Willink.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people hold him as like the Messiah,
The master of discipline.
right?
Right.
And they focus on that and hold him so high,
Mm-hmm.
which is well deserved,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Um, but also to go along with that, there's every man is a man,
Right.
right? Like every human being is exactly that. There are some that are better at things than we are,
Mm-hmm.
but I think there's one one piece of it that we just strive to be. Like we see that someone is doing something that we want to be like,
Yep.
and so we try to hold ourselves to that flame as close as possible.
Right.
And put this person on a pedestal, which can be good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we see some of ourselves in them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But there's that would be my opinion on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You?
I agree. I think there is, like you said, there's a good and bad when you're idolizing, people, different social influencers and whatnot. I think there is a little bit of, I like to say, a superhero syndrome
Mm-hmm.
where essentially we look at these people and say, hey, I had these problems, but I'm on social media and I see an influencer and I'm saying, okay, I have these problems, but it looks like he can save me from these problems.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, it's not a bad thing, because, and you pointed out that they might have certain characteristics that we lack within ourselves, and we see inspiration from that particular characteristic. Like, for your example, Jocko, he's a very disciplined man. And, a lot of us, whether you're a man, woman, or, man or a woman, you can look at Jocko and say, you know what, I do like discipline in my life, and so I'm going to follow him because he looks like he has this discipline thing figured out. Uh, what can make it an issue is you start to when there's that emotional connection, and sometimes when there's the emotional connection, the logic is low,
Mm-hmm.
and not understanding like, okay, yeah, you see that he's posting, he's getting up at 4:30 every morning, and you're seeing that he's killing it in the gym. You see that he's killing it in jujitsu. You see that he's just killing it in life. But you have to practice discernment as well and understand that, he's a man just like us, and he's went through his own trials and tribulations, and, he's not a perfect individual. And, he's talked about in his podcast about, not being perfect for his family, or not being perfect for the line of duty when he was a Navy SEAL. So, when you start connecting an emotional level, and you're more focused on the delivery of what somebody is saying versus the content of somebody's character, or just really just taking that information that that person is saying for just information, that's where we can get it can become blurred lines. And I think that's what tends to happen. And also, we're not careful, it can stunt our growth, because when you have this superhero syndrome, you tend to not look within yourself and actually do the work and actually become your own savior, right? And that's what can happen too, where you're so locked into this one influencer that you're emotionally tied to him. You're whatever he says, you're thinking, oh, this is gold. Everything he said, he can't do no wrong. But then when he does something wrong, or he does get caught up in a situation that's not ideal, now you're trying to defend his actions. But the reality of the situation is, you only knew what he portrayed. You didn't know him as the man.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we have to truly be careful. We got to take in this, and also in this age of information, we have to just take it as information.
Yeah.
We can't we can't. Now, I'm not saying, look, somebody could take a look at this and say, so if so and so's a rapist, but he's saying good information, do I need to listen to him? It's like, well, hold on there. Let's he's saying if he's saying good information, but he's doing this bad thing, then use your discernment. Like use your logic here. Like,
Yeah.
if he's doing that, then understand, like, okay. why was he saying this good information? Was he just saying it to sell me and to hook me to buy a course, or and that's where we tend to forget. It's just
Yeah.
like when you get these people in high power that go through these bad situations, it's like just use your logic. Like if he did this bad thing, make a decision, don't follow him, and just take what he said. And also part of it is they might have said something that helped you in a time of where you were struggling or a time where like you felt stagnant, and it actually did help you grow in that area that you were looking to grow in. And so that's the emotional tie again, right? It's like, man,
Right.
this guy got me out of this situation, and now I'm following him wherever he goes. But at the same time, just understand that he's a human being just like us.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think of the situation is we have this superhero syndrome about people in these influencing spaces,
Yeah.
and we don't understand like they're just human beings like us.
Yeah. Which kind of falls into like politicians,
Mm-hmm.
and that politician does something that I say politician. The idea, right, that someone could be that we put all of our eggs in one basket
Mm-hmm.
to get this person into um, let me backtrack. Same thing happens with politicians, voting, games, like football games. Like people get so caught up and emotionally tied to the outcome.
Oh yeah.
And then from there, something happens, like you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe people just weren't prepared for.
Right.
Or um, this happens, and then so you're like, well, I put my vote here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now this is different than what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
But I casted my vote,
Yeah.
right? And so now I gotta stay with this.
Right.
Right now I gotta defend what's happening.
Yeah.
So I think that happens across the board with, like what you're saying is there's that emotional tie,
Yeah.
right? Because uh we associate ourselves with the choices that we make,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
thus um creating issue.
You know, I guess my thing is, why do you? We touched on it, but why do you think? Do you think people just don't like their lives? Like, do you think they just hate their lives, and which is why it's? Do you feel like when I tie to an influencer, I'm escaping from my reality and being more locked into the influencer's reality?
So I don't know if it's that. I mean, it can be, but it could also be the fact of just um, simply thinking that this person is a saving grace of
Mm-hmm.
some sort,
Yeah.
or because if I do these things, this is going to do this, but not actually fixing the problem, which is
Right.
internal,
Just yeah.
right?
Right.
And thus, when not fixing the problem of the internal issue, you are putting a band-aid over the bullet hole,
Right.
right?
Right. When you need to go to the doctor and
Hmm.
right and get that fixed.
So I mean, and again, going back to the politician ideas, like I'm voting for this person because they're going to save everything else that's going on out there. But the simple fact that you are being external
Mm-hmm.
with your happiness, or this person's going to save this, or this person's going to do the things that I want, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you're not fixing the problems around you.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, nothing will change,
Right.
right?
Yeah, it's I feel like all of our episodes kind of tie into with each other because and we talked about this probably a couple of episodes back where it's like, the you can only control one thing and that's yourself. You know. Um and just sticking to your to your political example, right? When voting was when the election was happening, like you just saw people just getting into a complete uproar and
Hmm.
losing their minds about whoever they wanted to vote for and defending, like, hey, I'm
Yeah,
voting for this person because they believe in this. But then I don't think people ever ask themselves, it's like, do they truly believe in that, or are they trying to get your vote?
yeah,
But again, you're so emotionally tied to what's going on because of the fact that you don't like the situation that you're in.
right,
But if you actually took the time and did that internal work and figured out what's going on with your situation, you could actually save yourself. It's like whoever I elect as president is not going to help me pay off my student loans, or it's not going to help me get a better job.
right.
You know, they potentially could contribute to that situation, but at the end of the day, it starts with yourself.
Yeah,
So why are you putting so much blind faith into an individual that you've never met? You never ever had a face-to-face conversation with him. You never met his family. You don't even know how he grew up. You only know because of what you're seeing in the media as far as and what you Googled and researched, but you don't know this person.
right.
So why are you blindly putting, like you say, all your eggs in one basket in this one person who could really be leading you down a rabbit hole?
Yeah. I had a similar conversation about not necessarily this, but um, conflict and conflict resolution and why it's so hard to resolve conflict
Mm-hmm.
um, for a lot of people. And it's simply for the simple fact that they are emotionally charged and they put themselves with the choices that they make,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if this is your idea, you are going to do everything you can to with uphold that idea,
Make yourself right.
right? Because
Yeah.
you're gonna do. We see it in business, right? You have a team member who's like, "This is the best idea that we ever had," and
Mm-hmm.
it just so happens that I created it,
Right.
right?
Right.
We should go this route, or we should do this thing, or this is going to, whatever. You see this with leadership.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best idea ever,
Yep.
right? And it turns out that if you get any sort of other opinion on that idea, you will get clapback,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the reason you get clapback is because that person has tied their their value to
Into
their
their idea.
idea.
Yeah.
And the moment that you can separate yourself from that idea that this is the only way to handle this,
Mm-hmm.
you open the room for collaboration.
Yeah. And you open it for growth.
Hmm.
Uh, because it's like how much progress can you make when you're in your own echo chamber?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because if you're in your own echo chamber, everything I say sounds like a great idea,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you're not allowing anybody to provide you feedback because you are afraid and you don't want somebody to bruise your ego.
Right.
And so the question is, and this is more of a personal for yourself. Is there somebody in your life now who you look up to, you admire, and this is kind of a hypothetical situation. If they did a bad thing and you have a relationship with them, but they've also helped you grow in different areas of your life,
Hmm.
how do you hold that individual accountable for their actions, even though they've helped you develop to the person that you are today?
Well, so that's twofold. One, you have to make sure that you're not being biased,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
Because not every action is a bad action.
Right.
Just you can also perceive something just because you're coming from a different place
Hmm.
as a bad action, right?
Right.
There's obvious moral bad action, right?
Yeah.
But then there's also those moments where you're like, man, I probably wouldn't have done it that way. And then
Right.
so you see it um, as a negative,
Mm.
or um, or just because you're in your own thought process about something
Yeah.
that you perceive it as a whatever it may be, right?
Right.
A conversation, an action, something, something as simple as just, the person didn't say good morning to me,
Hmm.
right? And you're like, man,
Now you're in your own head
right.
about it. Right.
So it's important to take your own perspective on it,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
then be able to make that judgment. But how do you hold that person accountable? With a conversation
Yeah.
and not unbiased because it's very hard for a human to be unbiased, but um, being able to being able to break down a conversation.
Yeah.
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 It's hard to crucify someone if you're having an open conversation,
Right.
right? And then if you are genuinely unable to have a conversation with that human being, maybe maybe you don't know that person like you think you do, right?
Yeah.
Going back to the politician and
Hmm.
voter mentality,
Hmm.
um, or famous person and unfamous person just because you follow them on Instagram. I
Right.
mean, there's so many different ways, but how do you hold that person accountable? I think you have that conversation.
Yeah. You can, if it's somebody that you have a legit relationship with, yeah, it definitely starts with a conversation, right? And it's all about time and place as well. You don't want to hold somebody in a court of public opinion. Um, you don't want to necessarily do that right away, especially if you have a relationship with them. You want to, in a uh, intimate setting or like, it can be like how we are now. It can just be a simple like, hey, I'm hearing these things, man. Like I just before, you know,
Hmm.
I want to come talk to you personally and get your side of the story and as far as like what's going on. I think that's the first thing to be able to properly hold somebody accountable. I think where a lot of us go wrong is, we people be chattering and people might be saying things about this one particular individual that you actually have a relationship with and they helped you grow. And, and then you don't have the conversation with them. You're listening to these external voices, these people. Oh yeah, I heard he was or yeah, he was. Yeah, he's not what you think he is. We tend to gravitate to that because again, it's you know whether you like the gossip or not. People. You kind of have that subconscious thing where like
Yeah.
somebody tells you something like something crazy, you're like, oh really? Like, what? Like what made you say that? Like what's
Hmm.
like what do you mean so and so did this? Like what was that? What like where'd you get that from?
Yeah.
So you're naturally curious, but you just gotta understand. You can't just end it there, especially if you got a relationship with the person. Like for example, like hypothetically speaking, if somebody was, if I was hearing things about you, right, and from different people, and one you gotta understand like are these people close to
Right.
Ashley? Right. Now, if it was like your mom and dad or something saying these things about you, then it's like, okay, you might hold their opinion a little bit higher versus like a complete stranger,
Yeah.
or especially somebody that, you know that, okay, this person was never cool with us. And so I immediately know like he's using a negative bias with
Right.
what he's trying to tell me. But yeah, that's if you have a relationship with that person and you're hearing these things about this person, you just gotta have that face to face conversation. But then, kind of flip to this question is how or can you hold an influencer or somebody that you just see on social media? And I'm not saying like you personally, but like how how can you hold an influencer or somebody that has like high power? How can you hold them accountable? What I guess what are some examples in today's world that you see uh where situations where influencers are being held accountable? Like what's some of the ways that people do that nowadays?
Unfollowing,
Yeah, I'm following. Uh, got the whole cancel culture thing.
right, which is a whole other situation.
Right, right. Uh, that's. But then it's like, can you, as a person that's digesting that information that they're presenting on social media, can you even ever hold them accountable? Is it even our job to hold somebody in that?
It's not, hmm, I got a little bit different opinion on that, but I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think it's our job.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like if you're friends with someone, there's a different aspect of that. But people are their own people,
Right.
right? And you've got to be able to discern whether these are your people or not, right? Like
Hmm.
at the end of the day, if someone's doing something that you don't like or don't agree with, and you're close with that human being,
Hmm.
then yeah, you have that conversation. But outside of that, if someone is you're just an acquaintance with someone,
Yeah.
bro, just move on,
Yeah.
right?
You
Like,
know.
don't associate.
Yeah.
And then if it's on, whatever Facebook feed or whatever else, there's an unfollow button for a reason, right? You don't have to get upset and comment, right? It's not your job to hold that person accountable, especially if you're just following them. Like you were purposely making that choice.
I always thought, man, like when you see people leave like negative comments under like
Mm-hmm.
people with like big platforms, like they have like a million something.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, like people like that. Always wonder why even bother leaving a negative comment or
Yeah.
even a comment at all.
Yeah.
It's like always wonder what that individual gets from commenting. Like we're just going to focus on a negative comment. I always wonder what people get out of making a negative comment about whether it's a video or whatever, a post that
Mm-hmm.
a social media person or influencer made. Like what do you truly get out of that? You know that if they have a large platform, now you do see some instances where a guy like a Joe Rogan or a LeBron James or somebody, you know, responding to a negative comment. And then but then it makes me think also, it's like, are you just saying this negative comment so you can get
Mm-hmm.
engagement from this person? Like,
Right.
do you even truly feel the way you feel in this negative comment that you posted or are you just trying to get some type of engagement?
Yeah.
So it just, it's interesting how people can feel like they just have that much control over
That situation.
that situation where it's
Yeah.
like this guy probably didn't even check he only probably even check his comments.
Yeah. You probably didn't even run the account.
The probably don't even run that's the thing too. So like that and that's what led me to make the comment like, can you even truly hold an influencer accountable, especially if they're not running their own account,
Yeah.
it's but then also you think of it like this, it's like and you made a good point. It's not our job, as a person that just follows them. It's like all we can do is just like, okay, I don't like this person, I don't like what they're saying, I'm just gonna unfollow them.
Right. Yeah. I mean that is your accountability button.
Right, that's your account. That's like at least a person like people in our um just normal people that follow these celebrities. It's like, all right, just hit the unfollow button. Like it's really the job of the people that's close to that individual to hold them
Yeah.
accountable.
It's a crazy mindset.
Yeah,
Like it's genuine, such a crazy mindset.
it almost gives like you feel like you're the main character.
Hmm.
You know, it's just like it's like it's like, bro, I don't think he even runs his own account,
Yeah.
which means he's probably not checking your native comment.
Yeah, which is it has its own form of just like one, it's ego, right? But
Yeah.
then it's also like you feel so bad in your own life that you've got to outrage to someone else. Like
Hmm.
it, none of it makes sense to me, dude. None of it makes sense. Because I don't think I've ever left a negative comment my entire life, and
Never.
I could probably count on three hands, how many comments I've actually left, other than with friends and family. But
Right.
um, it's just it's a very interesting thing to kind of see. And I mean, it's happened to us like on our TikTok page.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's even happened on like our TikTok page, but then
Hmm.
also my real estate page.
Hmm.
Which check it out, Corbin team. Um, but it's we had a couple of videos that went viral, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
Okay.
people just talking just mad shit on me. And I'm like, I'm cool with it. Like I can take it or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just it's an idea of like I mean you could have just kept scrolling. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
your
man.
opinion is your opinion just got me comments. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just got you more viewership, more engagement.
Right.
You know, it is you're just. I mean, all it did was you're just upping my engagement.
Right. And
So
if anything, you're starting a comment war.
yeah,
So it's
more engagement.
right. So
Right.
it's an interesting concept, but how does this apply?
How does this apply to the mind, body, and spirit? So before we do that, let's just kind of review what we talked about today. So overall, we're just talking about like in this title, truth over trial. Your job as an individual is to always seek the truth and your truth that applies to your situation or your life. um you have to just use discernment at all times, especially in this age of information. Not all information is good information. And so you just have to really discern whether this is information that I can apply to my life or I can't apply to my life. And then also we have to really understand charisma versus character.
Hmm.
Just because a person has great charisma doesn't mean that they have outstanding character.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that is part of your discernment, where it's like, okay, he's delivering the message to where I'm emotionally engaged, but in the back of my mind, I always have to understand this person is a human being and a flawed human being at that.
Yeah.
So always take information as information, whether it's good or bad, and just figure out how you can apply that information. Now, how can we apply this to the three pillars? I think from a mind standpoint, if it's well, actually, I'm gonna dial it back. I'm gonna try to kill three birds with one stone here. Applying this to the three pillars, regardless of its information about knowledge of the mind, knowledge of the body, or knowledge of the spirit. Understand this: nobody's coming to save you. The only superhero in your journey is yourself.
Yeah.
So don't rely on others. Don't rely on celebrities. Don't rely on influencers, politicians, fitness gurus, lifestyle gurus. Do not put all of your faith and all your eggs in one basket in these people, because they're not you. They are not your superheroes. You are the superhero in your own story. You have to do the work to further improve your mind, improve your body, improve your spirit. Now you can take this information that you're hearing and researching and apply it to the three pillars, but do not get attached to the person that's delivering the message. Listen to the message, understand it, digest it, and figure out how it can apply to your mind, body, and spirit. What about you, brother?
Well, that's good. Similar to what you thought is, right? Um, you've got to you've got to be able to be your own person.
Have to.
And that applies itself to mind, body, and spirit, right? Because we can sit here and we can talk about all the things that we talk about and give our opinions on things. But it's up to each individual person to formulate their own thought,
Absolutely.
right? And by doing that, you can feed your mind, body, and spirit, right? Because it does formulate to the idea of some people do really well with keto, right? And you could be following the keto genius.
Yep.
Um, and you do it for a year and it doesn't work out the way that the way that you needed it to. But you follow the rules.
Right.
And that in itself will tell you that everybody's different. Right.
Absolutely.
Some people do really well with working out every single day. Right. Some people work out doing 3 days. Some people work out and they do 3 times a week, and that's perfect for what they need to maintain.
Absolutely.
There was a bodybuilder, Ryan something. Dude, he worked out once a month.
Yeah.
Once a month, but he was yanked.
Yeah.
Like it was during like Ronnie Coleman times, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely just freaking massive dude. Once a month. He said he went into the gym once a month. Now, probably was taking a lot of roids, right?
Of course.
But that allowed, like, he did better on that system. Now, the same can't be said for some other people.
Right.
Like Ronnie Coleman, he was in the gym every single day.
Every single day, all the time. Yeah.
And so it just kind of lends itself to the understanding that if you can take information in, formulate your own opinion without bias of whatever else is happening externally,
Yeah.
You're going to feel a lot more free based off of the decisions that you are making.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you feel a certain power too, where it's like, this was a decision that I formulated, right? Now, of course, you might have took a piece here, a piece here from somebody, a piece here from somebody, but you took those pieces, made a little concoction, and personalized it, and you made your own thing.
Yeah.
Like to your point with the working out. You see somebody on one end where they work out once a month, and you see somebody where they work out every day. Find that middle ground where it's like, okay, I'm not a once a month guy, but I'm not an everyday guy. Maybe I'm like a 3 to 4 times a week. It's all about listening to yourself, listening to your body. And that's the biggest thing, man. Create that power within yourself by your own creation, not by just blindly following somebody else's. So,
but with that, the devil's advocate on that, you got to try.
Yeah,
you got to try all of these things, right, before you can make your own decision.
Oh yeah.
And so sometimes that lends itself to, okay, Jocko gets up at 4:45, right, or whatever. Maybe you start trying.
Yeah.
Right. To see if that fits. Right. Without having yourself, whatever. But that was a big part of my 20s was just applying.
Yeah.
Right. Learning, apply. Learn, apply. Learn, apply. And that put me probably heads and tails above a lot of folks that weren't doing those things. They were learning, but they weren't applying. And so that I think that gives you it's literally just a cheat code of life. Is being able to discern what does make sense for you, but also the simple fact of you just applying is going to be a lot further.
Yeah, and you being consistent with trying
Hmm.
new stuff, and trying different methods.
Right.
Um, because that's where a lot of us fail at is we don't try.
Hmm.
We listen, and I think there's some type of like we trick ourselves and like we listen to Jocko getting up at 4:30, and then we get like I could be scientifically wrong, but this is just my thought. If I hear Jocko and see Jocko getting up at 4:30 every morning, psychologically, I feel like it tricks your mind to thinking like you're actually doing it.
Hmm.
When in reality, you you're not doing any of it. You're
Hmm.
listening to it, you're digesting it,
Yeah.
but you're not applying it. So I think that's where this is why a lot of us fail is because we're digesting the information and at a fast rate too. And it's somehow like we trick ourselves thinking like we're actually doing it because we're listening to it 24/7. But
Right.
but as far as like, body wise and your output is going to tell on you. The results are going to tell on you. So yeah, you might be tricking yourself thinking you doing all these things, but eventually the results gonna tell.
Yeah.
The results gonna say, oh, this guy's been getting after it. Or this guy hasn't been getting after it.
Yeah.
And then also, I think the biggest thing too is the worst feeling ever is looking back at something, whether it's like it could be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, looking back at something and being like, man, I should have just did it.
Hmm.
And I think that's what happens. And that can lead to you not liking the life that you're living because you're just you're digesting the information, but you're not applying it.
Right.
So yeah, you're learning all these things, researching and everything, but then we get 10 years down the line, you're still at the same place. You're still just digesting it.
Hmm.
It's like you ever seen this you ever seen this movie Goodwill Hunting?
Yeah.
And like, the kids like South Boston wizard, like knows, genius and everything. And there was this one scene where this was after he met the therapist and they was in the park. And like he was just, he was basically reading him down like, yeah, you could probably tell me everything about the Sistine Chapel, but you never seen it. You can tell me about, you know, all types of women and everything, but you never got laid.
Hmm.
So I feel like that's where the dangers in this age of information where we can tell you everything about working out. We can tell you everything about, you know, how to handle your finances. We can tell you everything about the type of shoes, the type, we can tell you everything about everything, but if you ask a question like, have you ever done that?
Yeah.
We can't come up with an answer.
Yeah.
So don't be like that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's what it comes down to is just being able to formulate your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Being able to get to a clear enough space to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then understand when you're not.
Yeah.
Understand when you're verbalizing other things.
Yeah.
That are not you.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, that's all I got, man.
No, that's all I got, man. Smooth episode, man.
Yeah.
But so that concludes our episode. Like we always say at the end of each episode, we appreciate you guys just tuning in and listening to two brothers just having an authentic conversation. We're not some big platform. We're not investing, a lot of production into this. We have the essentials that will help us, but ultimately we just want you to, just how we talked about, just taking information, take the information that we're saying, figure out how it applies to you, and just continue to join us on this journey of improving our mind, body, and spirit. Peace.